All right, let's kick it. Welcome to the Sobriety Diaries, friends. My name is Nate. I am a grateful recovering alcoholic and sober coach. My addiction has shaped the person I am today and given me the ability and voice to help others, and I simply wouldn't be here without it. Recovery is possible. The Sobriety Diaries is a video podcast where we talk to other recovering alcoholics and addicts. We hear their stories and hope to help others who may still be struggling. Head on over to the sobrietydiaries.com where you can apply to be a guest on the show and join our insiders list for early release episodes, exclusive content, and much more. Also, please share this podcast with just one person in your life who may still be struggling. You just never know what they may need to hear today. Happy Sober Day, friends. Thank you so much for downloading the episode today and spending time with me here on the Sobriety Diaries. The support is truly, truly appreciated. Make sure you head over to the sobrietydiaries.com to join our insiders list for exclusive content. We do early release episodes and so much more. It's just a new way to connect and help build this community around recovery. We've got a great show for you today. We are chatting with Arlina Allen. She is the host of the One Day at a Time Recovery podcast. She offers coaching services. She has over 27 years of personal sobriety and recovery that she uses to help women and people in general really see that they don't need alcohol in their lives and they can break free and choose to live a better life. She focuses on healthy self-esteem and just positivity, which I really love about her. And we share this sort of sick sense of humor, which I love. So we laugh a lot in the episode, but don't let that take away from the importance of the topic. And if you're listening and still in a place where laughter isn't part of your day-to-day, just know that it can get there and you can find happiness and laughter in life. And I think that's important to know and to understand. Also stick around until the end of the episode to hear why it took over 4 hours to record today's episode with Arlina. But without further ado, let's open the diary on Arlina Allen. Arlina Allen, thanks so much for joining us on the Sobriety Diaries today. How's your day going?
It's going fabulous. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Well, we've exchanged interviews, so I was joking that we're going to just know so much about each other. And we have a similar format. So what we typically do is start by walking through your story of addiction and journey or your path to recovery.
Sure. Yeah. No, I love talking about myself. Is that wrong?
No, right there with you.
Me and my girlfriends used to joke around and be like, oh, I'm tired of talking about me. How about you talk about me for a little while?
Ego is one thing that I still have to be careful of.
Your ego is not your amigo, as they say.
I love it.
I don't know. I've learned that my ego is trying to keep me safe ultimately. So
very true. And I think, a little bit of it can be a good motivator. And, there's pride in what we do. So I just got to, keep it at bay a bit.
Balance.
Right.
Balance. I got sober in I know I'm so old. I feel old. 1994 is when I got sober. I was 25 years old and I was sick and tired being sick and tired. And I was feeling pretty desperate for change. And I got there because of a few things. Like starting at the beginning is, the foundation of my addiction, I believe, started in my childhood, where my predominant feelings were like guilty and wrong. A couple of things happened early in my childhood, divorce, and I was abused by a neighbor. Actually, I recently just recognized, it's so funny how we can hide things from ourselves, but I can, even though I've been sober a long time, I continue to do a lot of work, as they say, therapies, journaling, self-discovery. I did hypnotherapy. I'm actually being trained as a hypnotherapist right now. So I'm super excited about that. I'm in the middle.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm a coach, but
Exciting.
yeah, I'm a coach, but I'm also adding that to my services as hypnotherapy because it was so transformative to me, and some things that I had disassociated from in childhood
Mm.
came to light recently. So I had maybe a few instances of abuse from different people. Early on, I had this deep seated belief that I was bad and wrong and, a bunch of other things. And, my parents, very, very nice people. They didn't drink or do drugs or anything like that. Come from a middle class, home. Dad is from Kentucky, and
Love
mom
it.
is
Not far
mom.
from me here in
I
Ohio.
know, I know. And mom is from Mexico City. So there was a lot of ay Dios mío, gracias a Dios,
I love it.
and praise Jesus.
Yes. A good mix, I think.
Yeah, a whole lot of God.
Now, were they aware
Yeah.
of the abuse after it happened?
Well, there was a time when my mother walked in on it. So I was really young, like 5 years old when it started, and it
Wow.
was with an older neighbor girl. Was kind of like did that predatory grooming or whatever.
Yeah.
And I had no boundaries. I was raised to be a good little girl,
Yeah.
right? Which meant no boundaries. Nice girls don't say no, nice girls don't get angry. Nice girls don't have feelings, right? My mother used to control me with my feelings by getting angry. So it was like sort of like this overwhelming, oppressive thing. And I learned to disassociate and detach and disconnect. But I'm a fighter. So I'm the youngest of two girls, right? I have an older sister, and my older sister was like the compliant good child. I was not. I was
Yes.
the
I
fighter.
see where it's going. So you kind of
Do
had
you
to
see where
fight for your standing almost.
I did. I did. I just had like this natural fight in me. But, my predominant feelings when I was growing up were guilty and wrong, and my mother's predominant feelings, she was either really happy or really angry. And I felt like she saved the happy face for the outside world. When I was very young, my parents were still married. So I was under 7. She happened to walk in on it, and she freaked the F out.
Of course.
But she shamed me. It was about her shaming me. It
Wow.
wasn't about like there was no recognition of it was this older girl doing these things to me. She like I would just remember screaming and shaming and feeling horrible, and the look of disgust and almost like hatred on her face that I saw. It was super traumatic,
Yeah.
right? So it was like double trauma. And I maybe got this deep sense in my heart that my mother didn't like me, or she hated me, or was disgusted by me. And then fast forward to when I was about 14 years old, I had this experience with my mom. So my parents divorced, and it was the three of us primarily in the house, and my older sister was suffering from depression. And back then, I'm 52, so back then, when I was 14, no, it wasn't mainstream. Nobody talked about it. The only thing that had been aware of is like mental breakdowns. Like
Hmm.
you heard about these famous people having like mental breakdowns.
My mom always called it a nervous breakdown.
Sorry, yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. Nervous
Yeah.
breakdown, a nervous breakdown. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's all the information we had. There was no, and my mom was nervous, or she was really scared, I think. And she told me one day, she's like, we have to stay close to her. I think she was afraid that my sister was going to kill herself,
Mm.
and it was kind of unspoken, but the message I got was I needed to save my sister, and I was ill equipped. And then later in recovery, I realized, oh, in my mind, I associated if I could save my sister, then my mother would love me. And then even more recently, somebody else brought it all the way home for me to say, then I could love myself.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of doing recovery work over a long period of time, as you go deeper and deeper and deeper until you get to the real core issue. And sometimes, you don't really know where the core is until you
Right.
just keep working, right? And more will be revealed, as they say.
It's not easy work, but I think that it truly, truly changes, to your point, the way that we feel about ourselves, the way that we really conduct our lives. And it's not easy. sometimes it takes 25 years, but I think it's such important work. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Or 27 in my case.
27.
Yeah. And I suspect it will be an ongoing process. And the funny thing is, so, fast forward to today, the work I do is I'm fascinated by neuroscience and positive psychology and all these different things all these different modalities of healing that we have access to now. And I became aware of something called the default mode network. And it's a system of neurons and connections in your mind that are developed early in childhood. It's ideas about who you are, what you deserve, what you're capable of, what you're worth. All this becomes sort of like your mind's operating system, just like a computer is your operating system. And so we develop these beliefs about who we are. And if the belief is based on a misconception, then everything from there will be faulty. And it's typically subconscious, right? It's not really in our conscious mind. And that's why I'm so fascinated by hypnotherapy, because it's a process of rewiring those negative, limiting subconscious beliefs. Because we all know what to do, but we don't do it. There's a very, like, we all do the self-sabotaging, but we all know how to lose weight. Don't eat so much and exercise, right? Don't eat the crap, but we don't do what we know to do, because we have like these limiting self-beliefs that keep us stuck, like kind of within a comfort zone. We don't get too high, we don't get too low. We live in this, and that's actually your subconscious mind's way, or your ego or whatever, way of keeping you safe, because you have survived within this comfort zone. So it wants you to continue to survive. So it's really designed to protect you. But if your presupposition or base beliefs are faulty, then we really need to do some work to change that. And that's what happens in that sort of hypnotherapy recovery type work.
Fascinating. So this operating system, I guess, that we develop at an early age, can we rewire it?
It's been my observation that it's sort of a set thing. However, you can do work that will raise or change the defaults. And Dr. Andrew Huberman is a neurobiologist out of Stanford, and they do a lot of research about neuroplasticity, how to rewire the brain. And he just had a conversation with Dr. Spiegel, who is the head of their psychiatric department, and they use hypnosis to help people do exactly that, which is to sort of rewire those thoughts and beliefs. And so, if we just back up for 1 second, when you're a child and you have an experience, what the brain does is assign meaning to an experience. And because we don't have full context of information, typically what happens is we assign a meaning that is negative and self-defeating, right? It's especially if we have a painful experience, it's like a negativity bias, right? It's like the mind is looking for danger and negativity, right, to be aware of, so that it's for survival, right? So a child has a negative experience, they go, oh, there must be something wrong with me. And therein lies the limiting negative self-belief. And then there's also a concept called negative confirmation bias, where you get information, you develop a belief, and then your subconscious mind only looks for information to support the belief and will deny or negate any other information to the contrary. So you might have, 100 compliments telling you, oh you look amazing today. Then one person goes, yeah, but that hair, oh my God.
You're right.
Right.
And
all
it
we
just washes
hear,
it all away.
yeah, all the 100 don't count. All that matters is the negative. Why is that? It's the negativity bias. It's confirmation bias. It confirms our internal beliefs about ourselves, and to the exclusion of all the other positive information that we receive, right? So that's sort of like the mechanics of the brain, and it's designed to be efficient. It's designed to protect you. And so we get these limiting beliefs in childhood, and typically some other things that are happening, right? So as a child, you're not in control of your environment. That's the adults. And so we have to learn to appease the adults for survival. They're the ones in control of our environment. So a lot of times based on the type of parent you have, right?
Yeah.
That will either reinforce or degrade your level of self-esteem, your beliefs about yourself, and all that kind of thing. So, but those are like disassociation is a survival skill. Like I used in childhood to disassociate from how much I hated myself, right? And what I believed that how my mother felt about me. But and that helped me to survive childhood, but it didn't translate into a healthy adult relationships. So that's sort of how like the stage was set. Parents divorced, some abuse happened, and that set the stage for me trying to overcompensate. So I would overcompensate in achievement. And, so it's kind of funny because we grew up kind of poor. And so I thought, I thought was going to save me. I thought it was either love or money. I totally bought into the Cinderella story, that if I was just beautiful enough, if I had enough money, if I could attract Mr. Right, then my life would be perfect. So I sort of summarized my whole drinking and using experience into if it were in a bottle, a bag, or blue jeans, I was doing it.
And there it is.
You knew I was going to work. You knew I was going to work that one in.
I would have if you didn't. So thank you.
Yeah. And now it's like, now life is different, but anything to fill the void back then, it distract really was. Now the thing was, is I hated myself, and I was looking for love outside myself. I was looking for external validation because I couldn't give it to myself. Like I knew where all the bodies were buried, right? Like I knew where all the faults were, and I was just trying to hide, and I had to put on my armor so that you couldn't see who I really was. So I would use things like humor. I would use humor to cover. I would use men to make myself feel better, feel valued. It's kind of funny, in our culture, a man's value is based on protect and provide, and a woman's value is based on her looks and who she can attract. Right. And so growing up, I felt like the ugly duckling, right? I did not feel pretty. We were poor. I didn't have the right clothes. I was envious and jealous. And my childhood was full of like frustration and low self-esteem, and that set the stage for the addiction. And I started drinking really early. I was about between 8 and 9, which is sad to think that I felt the need to do that young. But my mom like remarried when I was 10, I think.
How were you exposed to alcohol that young?
I never saw my parents drink or anything, but I think I'm not even sure where I got the idea. Drinking is pretty predominant in our culture. And I didn't see my parents drink, but I did. My mother went out on a date, and my sister and I were left home alone. She was older than me, but I was younger than 10 for sure. So she went out on a date, and there was a dusty old bottle in the cabinet. And I'm not sure where I got the idea to drink, but I think just because you're exposed to so many images of drinking and stuff in our culture, I just thought maybe that's where I got it. But the first drink I ever had, I remember it as if it were yesterday because it burned my lips. It burned all the way down. But when it hit bottom, that warmth that spread through my body was magical. It lifted the self-hatred and self-loathing. I wasn't even really aware that that's what it was until I felt really good. I didn't realize how much I hated myself, or how sad I was, or self-conscious I was, until it was removed, and all that was left was that good feeling. The juxtaposition between those feelings of feeling really bad and feeling really good was so stark. It was burned in my psyche forever, right? Just that deep contrast. And I remember feeling completely numb, like feeling no pain, literally. I remember like we had this Mexican tile in the hallway, and I remember bumping into the wall and falling on the tile and it not hurting. And I was like, party for one. Yeah. Because my sister wasn't drinking. She was a good compliant child. Of course she wasn't drinking. Right. She's like 12. She's like 11. I don't know. And I don't remember everything that happened that night, but I do remember how it ended. I threw up all over myself in the bathroom. My sister cleaned me up and put me to bed. And years later, you know what, Nate, I asked her, I go, why didn't you say anything to mom? And she said, because I would have gotten in trouble.
Yes. Good point. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's it was like the codependent, relationship that, began our alcoholic Al-Anon.
Right. Codependent now she knows where the bodies are buried. You drug her into it as well.
Yeah. And we were both afraid of my mom. My mom had a temper. Right. And so and it was just like she would rage. Like she wasn't like physically abusive. It wasn't like she didn't hit me occasionally. In the Mexican culture, we have something called a chancla. It's a Mexican
Do
sandal.
tell. Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
You take on
I had to.
yeah. She used to say shit like, if I find it, I'm gonna hit you with it. Meaning like, Mom, I can't find my shoes. Mom, I can't find my
Yeah,
homework. Mom, I can't find. And she was like a great finder, but she'd be like, if I find it, I'm gonna hit you with it. And I used to tell that to my kids all the time in like a joking manner.
yeah.
But it's kind of not funny,
Right.
it's kind of
Nope.
like a little insight into just like her rage and anger. Like she's a very different woman. I tell my boys, I go, that sweet little lady who comes over here to see you? That is not the bitch that raised me. Well, let me just tell you, there's this lie that time heals all wounds. It doesn't. The pain waits, right? And so when we start doing this really difficult work, like you were saying, of recovery is about, what recovery is? Recovery is about recovering your whole self, the good and the bad, and
Hmm.
having compassion for the challenges that we had. And listen, I'm sort of on this tear right now about really anti-shame based recovery, because I feel like there's people who get too stuck on the character defects. It's good to identify the character defects, find out where you get out of balance. That's all it is. It's not this persecution of the ego or whatever, right?
Yes.
It's, where am I out of balance? There are these natural instincts that we have that are out of balance. And so but why are they out of balance? It's because we're afraid and we don't have good coping skills. We don't deserve condemnation for that, right? But that's what we do to ourselves. That's sometimes what we do to each other.
Yeah.
And so I just don't participate in shame-based recovery. It's like, oh, you did these things because you're afraid and you didn't know a better way. And so let's talk about identifying what the character defect is, how to get back into balance, how to recognize when you're out of balance, and how to make amends where you need to. But then let's move the F
The F
on.
on, right. Move on.
Yeah,
I couldn't
let's move
agree more.
on.
Like, I think that it's important to identify repetition or trends or things
Patterns.
that, patterns that you
Behavior
see in
patterns.
different relationships or instances in your life, but
Yeah,
move the F on and
move on.
let's focus on where we can go from here. Not, I mean, we say it all the time, like, we don't have to regret the past, we
Right,
don't have to set huge expectations for the future,
right.
but yeah, let's move on and focus on the positive. I love that you brought that up.
Yeah, we don't need to regret the past or shut the door on it. We also don't need to like live there either.
Exactly.
Right. Let's have compassion for when we fall down, where we fall short. It's like, I don't think there's enough emphasis on having compassion for ourselves or each other. We don't trust ourselves when we first get sober, and rightly so, right? Our brains need a little time to heal. Your dopamine reward system is all jacked up. Your limiting beliefs are pretty ingrained, and we haven't had an opportunity yet to sort of rewire our brain. And just a little note on rewiring your brain. Rewiring is about neuroplasticity that happens with intense focus followed by rest, right? Rest is where the neuroplasticity happens. And when I say neuroplasticity, your brain is really a network of neurons. It's like little collections of cells that everyone's seen those funny
Yeah.
pictures of like,
Right.
it looks
Right.
like a fried egg with long,
Yes.
long things.
Like little.
And neurons. Yeah. Yeah. And so there's a process called pruning and reinforcing. And the pruning is when an idea, a thought pattern that is repeated over and over becomes entrenched, just like a deer on a trail. The more deer go over it, the deeply and entrenched it becomes. But if nobody uses the trail, those those neural connections start to prune. Right, your brain is designed to be efficient. So if those connections aren't being utilized, your brain will automatically prune them, and that happens during rest. Right. So a lot of people are in early recovery have problems with sleep hygiene, right? Your dopamine reward system's off. It takes your brain time to heal. And your neural and sleep patterns are off. And so there's definitely some things you can do. There's so much information on the interwebs about sleep hygiene.
Yeah.
I used to read the big book to fall asleep. So there's that. It was
That's
written in
great.
like, it was written so long ago, like
So
80 years
long
ago.
ago.
Yeah.
Like what you and I do as well. We have our traditions for a reason,
I
and
know.
and we do our best
Anonymity.
to abide by them. But I think to the same point, this evolution of
Mm-hmm.
technology and the society that we live in, and I think this platform lends itself so perfectly to outreach and inspiration and recovery. Like, how could we not use it? And if we are truly doing it, to help those who are still struggling, I think the intention behind it means a lot as well.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think we're maybe due for a little upgrade.
Yeah, my initials are AA, but I do
I
not
know
represent
it.
it.
I
But
was typing out your email address and I was like, oh, damn.
oh,
Hey,
that's
hey, okay.
funny. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's funny. If you look at the literature, among the reasons for the anonymity is that there were too few people to handle all the requests that were coming in. And so that was one of the reasons why they wanted to maintain their anonymity. They just couldn't handle the volume of, the cries for help, which is so sad. But they needed to, that's all about setting boundaries. Good for you. But things have changed dramatically. And, I think there was some fear of shame from the community about employment and stuff. Like you wouldn't be able to be gainfully employed.
Yeah.
But things are so different now. Like that's not a thing. Things have changed.
Things have changed to say the least. Yes.
Yeah, to say the least. And we're really trying to, destigmatize like the work that you and I do. We really work hard to destigmatize and normalize mental health issues. Everybody has a degree of mental health issues. It's like everybody can recognize that we all need to lose 10 pounds, but God forbid anybody acknowledge that maybe I'm a little overstressed and a little depressed and a little sad. Like those are sort of the feelings that are unacceptable. It's acceptable to be a workaholic. It's acceptable to be angry to some degree. But yeah, things like vulnerability and sadness typically are not, especially like in corporate America. I've spent a lot of time in corporate America.
Yeah.
Not okay. Not okay.
I listened to a podcast yesterday and I related to what he said so much. Have you heard of TJ Woodward? he,
Maybe what's the
he
name of his book?
does he does a lot of recovery work in the LGBT community,
Oh,
and he was talking about just that. In like corporate America, we have this idea of crush it, kill it, let's sell, and do this, and to your point, show no vulnerability and show no human side of yourself in the work field.
yeah.
And I think that it does create this like dichotomy of who we are at work versus or who we're comfortable being at work and real life.
Like I was in high tech sales for 10 years and there was no room for work-life balance. I mean, you were rewarded for being a workaholic, right?
Yeah,
And
right.
do you know what the prize for success is? It's more work.
Yeah.
That's like winning a pie eating contest where the prize is more pie.
Here's your cherry pie trophy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and there's this, it's so dysfunctional, man. I know other industries feel like their industry is full of drinkers, but man, salespeople love to drink.
Yes, they do.
They love to drink. And I never did. I never did. I was always the odd man out, except for this one team I was on where I was on a team with a bunch of Mormons and sober people, which was so,
Yes,
yes,
you
nobody
found your
drank. It
people.
was awesome. Yeah, and we did really well because we weren't hungover all the time.
Right, right. I'm sure in your recovery there was a discovery period about yourself and what you thought you could offer to other people. And
Yeah.
let's kind of talk through that.
Well, so I started sponsoring like I got a sponsor right away. So I started doing my own work first. Let me just start there because
Yeah,
I know a lot of people that are not in recovery, therapists and doctors and stuff who don't do their own work first. Like those people scare me
me too.
because they don't really understand, especially the medical community. They get like zero training unless you're a board certified addiction specialist. So I digress. But anyway, so I started doing my own work right away because I was terrified of relapsing. And that was magical. It was a magical experience. Completely changed my life. And, you have that desire to give it away. They teach you, we give it away to keep it, right?
Yep.
Stay in the solution. And so I did that for a lot of years. I found that I had a knack for identifying patterns and leading people with compassion to allow them to release the blanket of denial, shall we say, to create a safe space so that they could see, their shortcomings with compassion, right? Like it's a support group. It's not, I don't believe in attack therapy. I guess it works for some people, but that is not my get down. I do
Me
not.
neither. No.
Yeah, I'm all about I'll love you until you can love yourself kind of a
Yeah.
thing.
I tend to just regress and go further inside myself if someone comes at me like that.
It's so interesting because in sales, you learn this concept about pressuring people. And in real, if you and I were in the same room, I'd ask you to hold up your hand and I would put my hand to yours and just press a little bit. And I have never done this experiment with someone who didn't push back. And the reason we push back is our instinct. So that when we get pushed, we push back. Right.
Yeah.
And so, and I learned this in sales because you learn to align yourself with somebody. It's like, well, what are the problems are we dealing with? And how can I help you solve your problems? How can I be of assistance to you? Not, this idea of the finger pointing and the condescending. And it's like, I can't hear you if you're trying to make me feel like a piece of shit.
Exactly.
I can't hear it. I can't hear it.
Mm-mm.
And these undeniable ideas like, oh, look at all your relationships. What's the common denominator? It's like, oh, yes, well, that's me. But
yeah, no, I'm just thinking about how much of an asshole you are the whole time, not the message that you're trying to give me. You know what I mean?
Your ego goes into defense mode. It
Yeah.
goes into, they say that rebellion, it says in our literature, rebellion dogs are every step. It's because we're scared. It's because we are so afraid that we are unworthy and unlovable. It makes me sad. Like I can feel it. It makes me sad. And so why would I be mean to somebody who's already so full of self-hatred that they've had to put on all this armor, right? There's a reason that when they talk about love being disarming, isn't that beautiful? And like I said, I don't do shame-based recovery. It's like, it's more empathy. It's more about compassion and empathy. And so I learned to have a knack for this thing. And I was in corporate sales for a long time and I just could not live this double life anymore. Like trying to pretend I'm somebody I'm not just so I can make a bunch of money.
Yeah.
Which was super fun. But
yeah.
I realized that was sort of like part of my armor is that I needed to make a bunch of money so that I could buy all the things and armor up, the clothes, the bags, the cars, the home.
Suit up.
I needed to suit up
because
I was vulnerable on the inside. But with love and support, I was taught how to process the pain to resolution. And so that's a lot of the work that I do is let's identify the pain. Let me support you in coming to your own conclusions. Let's see our patterns for what they are, which is the armor is protecting and typically what I find is that it was just the self-hatred, it was a misconception. It was misinformation. And so we learn to forgive ourselves for holding misinformation. At the core of ourselves, we are love. I believe that God in the simplest form is about love. It's not about, everything boils down to love or fear. I used to study the Course in Miracles and I used to read books by Marianne Williamson and I love Gabby Bernstein and they talk about the Course in Miracles, everything boiling down to love or fear. And I feel like if the whole big book could be reduced to one word, it would be just relax. The universe has your back.
Prior to recovery, every decision that I made in my life was completely led by fear.
Yeah.
And I like to think now that I make decisions based on love of myself primarily or first, but then of other people too. You just kind of like blew my mind with that.
Yeah, but that's what it is, right? That's that
Yeah.
love. It's the love that's mind blowing, right? It's like, oh my God, I all that time, it was just a big misunderstanding. None of it was true. Fear is false evidence appearing real.
Yeah.
None of it was true. All that's really true is the love, because love is creative and supportive and it's gentle, right? You hear these ideas about tough love. I kind of like this idea of spiritual rudeness, where I will tell you the truth, but I will
Yes.
deliver it with love and compassion.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Um, tone of voice and position and intention, like when you're coming from that heart-centered place, is very different than like attack therapy. Yes, we could both be saying the same thing, but the way you deliver it with the love and energy that you're transmitting, it matters. It really matters.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I feel like attack therapy is based on fear. And like I could say the same thing, what's the common denominator in all these relationships? Or, sweetheart, who's the common denominator in all these relationships?
Yeah.
What can we do different? That's very different.
I'll take the second one any day of the
Right?
week. Yeah.
Yeah. Be
Yeah.
sweet. That's what
Be
I tell my
sweet.
boys. That's what I tell my dog. Be sweet.
Aw. Well, your dog's adorable.
Oh my God,
And
Teddy. I love him. Oh my God, that dog.
how old are your boys?
So my oldest Travis, he'll be 21 at the end of August. So he's never seen me load. Neither of my kids have ever seen me loaded. And
Love it.
Tyler, my younger one, is 17 and a half. And so he'll be a senior in high school. So I can't believe that we're here already, but wow.
Almost
Yeah.
an empty nester?
I don't know. We have this big house now, and
Yeah.
I'm like, y'all don't have to leave.
Right.
We
Yeah.
we actually like our kids. I don't want my
Good.
kids to go.
Yeah.
My younger one cannot. When he was 6 years old or 7 years old or 8, I don't remember how old he was. One Christmas, he got a flat screen TV, and his first question was, "Can I take this with me when I move out?" I was like, "Why are you trying to break my heart on Christmas?"
Right.
I'm
And
so
no,
mean.
you can't.
And no, yeah.
And scene.
That's so funny.
Full transparency. It's now 2.5 hours later. I didn't even tell you this. A car crashed into my apartment complex, which is the reason that it happened. My power went out. And
I was like babbling away, and I was like,
yes,
Nate's face
yes.
isn't moving. What?
Yeah.
Mom, are you still there?
Yes. So we had a little reboot.
Well, I don't even remember what I was saying, but what I will tell you about the class, which I love, not just because it's my class, but because I get to spend some time with some amazing women. So the class is called Reinvent, and the idea is that we're sort of reinventing our self-image, we're reinventing our self-esteem. And so we start with, I think you may have said this, but I'll just briefly touch on, we start with your why, right? Because what's your core motivation for wanting to raise the level of your self-esteem? Because what I will then ask the participants to do is start a daily self-care practice. And everybody has that moment in the morning. I think it works better in the morning. And everybody has that moment in the morning where they open their eyes and they're faced with a choice. Do I just jump into my day, or do I practice self-care first? So that is when you remember, what is my why? Why am I doing all this to begin with? Right. So there's a little bit of the class is a workshop, right? So we all know what to do. I'll even give the ebook away for free. You can download it for free at selfesteemcourse.com. But what can be tricky sometimes is applying the information. And so that's what the class is. It's a workshop in applying the information. So, and we do it as a group. So there's some built-in accountability. There's some built-in service is a big part of raising the level of your self-esteem. So we're in service to each other by doing willingness calls. I have a private Facebook group where we call it the high-low game, where you, like, if you don't know what to say, but you want to engage or contribute, you share the highlight of your day and the low light of your day. And so we do a little bit of celebrating, but the low light is interesting because that gives us something to engage with, right? A little trauma bonding.
Yeah.
Right? People share their challenges and we go, oh, I felt like that too. Or we give each other love and support and encouragement. So over the, it used to be 6 weeks, but I added a new class because I realized that, when you're rewiring your brain, changing your default mode network, what ends up happening is your subconscious mind will present to you for your consideration all your worst doubts and fears. I teach a class on law of attraction, and we start manifesting what we do want. We start changing our focus from what we don't want to what we do want, right? We do something called the perfect day exercise, where you write down everything that you would want in your perfect day in as much detail as possible, from where you're at, who you're with, what the temperature is like, what are you wearing, just everything from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep. And what it does, it starts getting your imagination and your feelings engaged into what it is that you would like to create. Because the truth of the matter is you're already using the law of attraction, just not to your benefit. So we do all this stuff in class together. You start getting a community who understands sort of like the vernacular of growth and change. It gives you a little bit of momentum and gets you on your way. And then I do have a membership site that's launching pretty soon called the Brainwashers Club.
Love it.
I laugh at my own jokes. Sorry.
So do I.
Do you sometimes, do you ever wonder, you're like, God, is that
Yes.
annoying? I'm not sure. But
I'm not sure either, but I think I'm funny, I guess.
It's not gonna stop. So
No.
there you have it. The idea behind Brainwashers Club is like, you wouldn't go to the gym once and expect to stay in shape forever, right?
Yeah.
So we do all this work to start building momentum and doing all the self-care and investing in our community and ourselves, and you start getting momentum. So the idea is that to continue to sort of rewire your brain and really leverage that neuroplasticity ability that humans have, we continue the work on the Brainwashers Club. So it's like weekly meetings where we do a variety of different things. But really it's about connecting with like-minded people who have the same goal, right? Which is not just get sober, stay sober, but go deeper. So I have a newsletter called Adventures in Recovery.
Yeah.
And the free newsletter has like a meditation, a book resource, another podcast. So obviously I'm sharing your podcast.
Oh, thanks.
Yay. And there's just so many resources out there, and I'm always finding new things.
You found the man of your dreams finally after all those pairs of blue jeans, right around the time you were getting
a lot of damn frogs.
It was like right around the time you were getting sober, right?
Yeah, I was 5 months sober when we started dating. Oddly enough, he wasn't the first guy I dated in sobriety. And it's been interesting because over the years, when we talk about relationship, and I try to think of why is it that ours worked for so long and so well. And I've come to the conclusion that we both have the same goal, which is my happiness. So everything works out.
I was like getting in for like the relationship advice.
Okay.
I like it.
There's actually a real answer to that, which is the program has provided us a method of resolving resentment, right? Which is in the beginning of we worked some shit out over 27 years, right?
Yeah.
So we don't really have, it's all worked
existing
out now.
Things or
it's all good. Like I feel like I am the luckiest girl in the world. I really do. He's a great guy. In the beginning, I would go to my sponsor and I'd like, Bobby did this and he did that, blah, blah, blah. And she'd be like, okay, I don't sponsor him.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's rude.
Right.
What's your part?
Yeah, like, right.
Oh, wow. Spiritual rudeness, as we like to say. So she would talk with me until I could get clarity about what my part was and why I was behaving the way I was, like establishing recognizing patterns, like what was the fear underneath my behaviors and what could I do different. And then I got to this, she would help me get to this place of empathy where I could see how my behavior was affecting him. And I would, that awkward moment where you realize you're the asshole.
Yes. Oh, I hate that. Yeah. Yeah.
So I would go to him focused only on my part. And, I'd come correct. I'd be like, okay, look, I can see how this made you feel. Yeah, I see how I have a pattern of selfishly demanding that you show up in a way so that I can feel okay. And thank God I had a loving, compassionate sponsor who would talk to me until I could get that clarity. She was a safe place for me to, like, that blanket of denial would just like naturally fall away.
Yeah.
Which was nice. She wasn't like co-signing my bullshit. She was just helping me to see it in a sweet way. She was just sweet to me. And then so I would go to my husband and own my part. Meanwhile, he went off to the fellas and he was doing the same thing with them. So by the time we came together, he was talking about his part, I was talking about my part, and that wedge of resentment just melted away. And that's how we stayed happily married for, a very long time.
Yeah. Arlina Allen, thank you so much for spending time with us today. I appreciate your time. And
I so appreciate you too. Thank you so much for letting me rattle on about all this stuff. I just love it. I find it endlessly fascinating.
Me too. I could listen to you all day.
Oh, you're so sweet. Well, as it turns out, you can.
I was just going to say, take it.
Yeah.
I will put everything, the link to the podcast and your website and all that good stuff in the show notes. And let's be in touch, my friend. I'd love to continue
I'm gonna
to
have you on my podcast next week.
Woo, say what? Yes. Let's do some fun like cross promotions on Insta.
I would love to do that.
Okay, yep. Cool.
I'm your girl.
All right, awesome. Well, let's talk soon then.
Okay, thank you so much for having me. You have a great day.
Thanks so much for listening today, friends. Huge thank you to Arlina for your time and willingness to share your story. Hopefully you heard something that resonates with you, and if we help just one person, our job is done. You can find all things podcast related and subscribe to our show at thesobrietydiaries.com, youtube.com/Nate Kelly, where we upload today's video podcast, and on Instagram at the Sobriety Diaries Pod. Check back soon for new episodes with new stories to tell, but until then, try your best not to drink and be good to yourself. Bye, friends.